Story number 1. Wrong uniform. I was doing the 2 a.m. medication audit when I saw him walk past the nurses' station. The maintenance uniform was bright navy blue shirt, cargo pants, the regional medical center logo on the chest, but his boots were wrong. Black Carolinas with red laces. Our maintenance contractor requires tan Timberlands, steel-toed, no exceptions. I've processed enough vendor compliance reports to know that by heart. I told myself we must have switched contracts. Budget cuts happen, the administration sends out dozens of emails every week, and I can't read them all. Still, I watched him through the glass partition as he moved down the corridor toward the pharmaceutical wing. His gait was wrong too. Not the purposeful stride of someone who knows exactly which breaker box or pipe junction they're heading toward. More hesitant, searching. The floor was nearly empty during changeover. Most of the day staff had left. Night shift was still getting report in the break rooms. Just me and maybe 2 nurses somewhere in the building. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, that particular frequency that makes you feel like you're underwater. He stopped at the pharmaceutical storage entrance, looked at the keypad, then turned and walked back toward me. I kept my eyes on my tablet, pretending to review the controlled substance logs. My heart was doing something it shouldn't have been doing, a small, insistent knocking. "Excuse me." His voice was polite, Midwestern flat. "I need to check the HVAC in the records room. Thermostat's been acting up. You know which one that is?" I looked up. He was maybe 40, clean-shaven, wedding ring on his left hand. The uniform fit him properly, the logo looked legitimate, but there was still no name patch above the pocket. Our vendor always uses embroidered name patches. Always. "Down the hall," I said. "Third door on the right. The thermostat's on the north wall." "Thanks." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mind showing me? I'm new on this route." That made sense. New employees don't always get the full uniform right away. I was being paranoid. I'd been working too many double shifts, seeing problems where there weren't any. "Sure," I said. I led him down the corridor, our footsteps echoing off the linoleum. The chemical smell hit me when we were halfway there. Industrial cleaner, the kind that burns your nostrils. Too strong, like he'd spilled it on himself. But underneath it, something else. Something metallic and organic that made my throat tighten. I unlocked the records room and stepped inside. The thermostat was exactly where I'd said it would be. A digital unit on the north wall showing 72 degrees. Normal. I walked over to it, pressed a few buttons to bring up the diagnostic screen. Everything was functioning properly. Behind me, I heard the door close. Then the lock clicked. The sound was small, but absolute. I turned around. He was standing with his back against the door, one hand still on the deadbolt. He wasn't looking at the thermostat. He was looking at the filing cabinets along the east wall, the ones containing patient pharmaceutical records, controlled substance distribution logs. The paper backups we're required to maintain, even though everything's digital now. "Thermostat's fine," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. 72 degrees, no malfunction. He didn't respond. He moved toward the filing cabinets, tried the first drawer, locked. He tried the second, also locked. His jaw tightened. That's when I saw it clearly. No name patch. The uniform shirt was slightly faded, like it had been washed many times, but the pants were newer. Different shade of navy, and now that he was closer, I could see the logo was wrong too. The medical center's caduceus symbol was facing the wrong direction, a mirror image, like someone had copied it without paying attention to the details. "I need to get back to the nurses' station," I said. "You're the administrator on duty?" he asked, still not looking at me, running his hand along the filing cabinet labels. "One of them." "The only one on this drawer right now?" My stomach dropped. I thought about my phone, sitting on the desk at the nurses' station. I thought about the 2 nurses somewhere in the building, probably still in report, probably wearing earbuds. I thought about how the pharmaceutical wing was deliberately isolated from the main hospital corridors. Security design. to prevent unauthorized access. Security does rounds every 20 minutes, I said. It was a lie. They did rounds every hour. He finally looked at me. His expression had changed. The polite maintenance worker was gone. What was underneath was flat and evaluating, calculating. Keys for these cabinets in your office? Everything's digital now, I said. There's nothing in those files that isn't in the system. But you keep paper logs for controlled substances. Oxycodone, fentanyl, morphine, distribution records with patient names and room numbers. He took a step toward me. That's what I need. I backed toward the desk in the corner. There was a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall beside it. I'd never thought about it before. Just part of the safety equipment you see everywhere in a hospital and stop noticing. I don't have access to those files, I said. Yes, you do. You're doing the 2 a.m. audit. That means you have override access to every pharmaceutical record in the building. He was right. I did. The audit requires it. My heel hit the desk. Under it, I felt the slight raised platform of the foot pedal. The silent alarm. Every administrative office has one. I'd tested it once during orientation 3 years ago and never thought about it again. I can't help you, I said. He moved fast, crossed the space between us in 2 strides. I pressed down hard on the pedal with my right foot and grabbed the fire extinguisher with both hands, yanking it off the wall mount. The pin came free. He lunged forward and I squeezed the handle, aiming for his face. The white cloud of monoammonium phosphate hit him directly in the eyes. He screamed, hands flying to his face, stumbling backward. I kept spraying. The room filled with chemical fog. My own eyes were burning. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe. I just kept squeezing the handle until the canister was empty. Then I heard voices in the hallway, shouting. The door shook. Someone was trying to get in. In here! I tried to yell, but it came out as a cough. The door burst open. 2 security guards, one with his radio already at his mouth. They grabbed the man, forced him to the ground. He wasn't fighting anymore, just gasping, tears streaming down his face, the chemical burn already blistering his skin. One of the guards pulled me out into the hallway. The air was clean. I doubled over, coughing, my lungs trying to expel the extinguisher residue. You okay? Ma'am, are you hurt? I shook my head. Couldn't speak yet. 20 minutes later, they found him in the parking garage. The real maintenance worker. Zip-tied to a support column in the lower level, unconscious, blood matting his hair from where he'd been hit from behind. His ID badge was gone. His uniform shirt was gone. His work boots, tan Timberlands, steel-toed, were still on his feet. The police asked me how I knew. I told them about the boots, about the missing name patch, about the logo facing the wrong direction. They nodded and wrote it down, but I could see they thought I was lucky. That I'd noticed details most people wouldn't have. But that's not what keeps me up now. What keeps me up is how close I came to not noticing at all, how I almost convinced myself it was nothing, just a missed email, just paranoia, just my imagination making problems out of ordinary things. I still work night shifts, still do the 2 a.m. audits, but now I notice everything, every uniform, every badge, every pair of boots, and I can't stop wondering how many times I've been wrong before. How many times I've walked past something that wasn't right and told myself it was fine. The hospital installed better cameras in the pharmaceutical wing, changed the lock codes, added a second security guard to night shift rounds. But none of that changes the feeling I get now when I'm alone in those corridors at 2 in the morning. That sense that safety is just a story we tell ourselves, that the wrong person in the right uniform can get anywhere they want. The maintenance worker they found in the garage recovered. Concussion, 12 stitches. He doesn't work night shifts anymore. Neither does anyone else from that contractor. The hospital switched vendors. The new uniforms have name patches. The boots are black, Carolinas with red laces. I checked. Story number 2, package hold. I answered the door at 8:30 in the evening because I was expecting the package. The tracking said it would arrive by 9, and I had been checking my phone every 20 minutes since 6. When I saw the uniform through the peephole, I felt that small relief you get when something finally shows up on time. He was holding a box with my name on the label, but the cardboard was crushed on one side, partially caved in. He smiled apologetically and said he needed to come inside to document the contents for the insurance claim. I stood there with my hand on the doorknob, trying to process what he was asking. He explained that the company had a new policy requiring photo verification when packages arrived damaged, something about liability and theft complaints. He had a scanner clicked to his belt and the uniform looked right, down to the stitching on the collar. I hesitated because it felt unusual, but I also thought about how many protocols had changed in the last few years. Everything required documentation now. Everything needed a photograph. I stepped aside and let him into the narrow entryway. The apartment is small, a third-floor walk-up with barely enough room for one person. The entryway is just a few feet of scuffed linoleum before it opens into the living room where my desk sits against the window. He had to turn sideways slightly to fit past me with the box, and that is when I noticed the smell. Wet fabric. His jacket was soaked through, and the rain smell filled the small space immediately, dense and cold. He set the box down on the floor and crouched next to it, pulling out his phone. He asked what was supposed to be inside. I told him it was art supplies, ink cartridges and paper stock for a project I was finishing. He nodded and asked what brand of cartridges, what size paper stock, whether it was glossy or matte. The questions felt specific. Too specific for someone who just needed to photograph a damaged box. I told myself he was being thorough. I told myself the company probably had a checklist he was required to follow, but my stomach tightened anyway. I said I would just open it myself and show him what was inside. That would be easier. He looked up at me and swiped his phone screen. Then he turned it toward me. The screen showed a photograph of my living room taken from outside, through the window. My desk was visible, my computer monitor still glowing with the design file I had been working on. The angle was from across the street, zoomed in enough to see the coffee mug sitting on top of a stack of invoices. He swiped again. Another photo. My kitchen window, taken from the fire escape side of the building. The dishes I had left in the sink that morning were visible in the frame. He swiped again. My bedroom window, the unmade bed. I felt my throat close. I could not move for a second, just stood there staring at the phone in his hand while my brain tried to catch up. He was still crouching next to the box, his expression calm and almost friendly, like he was showing me pictures from a vacation. I stepped backward toward the door. He stood up slowly and said it was fine. He just needed to finish the documentation. His voice stayed level and polite. He said he knew I was alone most evenings. He knew I worked from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He said it like he was confirming an appointment. I grabbed the door handle and tried to swing it closed, but he moved faster than I expected. His boot wedged into the doorframe before I could get it shut, the rubber sole jamming against the wood. I shoved harder and he pushed back, not violently, just with steady pressure. He kept talking in that same calm voice, saying he was not going to hurt me, he just needed a few minutes, we could work this out reasonably. I slammed the door against his ankle as hard as I could. He grunted, but did not pull back. I slammed it again, throwing my full weight against it. This time I felt something give and he yanked his foot out. I got the door closed and twisted the deadbolt. Then the chain lock, my hands shaking so badly I almost could not get the chain into the slot. I ran to my desk and shoved it toward the door. It scraped across the floor loud enough that I thought my downstairs neighbor might hear, but I did not care. I pushed it until it wedged against the doorframe, then grabbed my desk chair and jammed it under the handle. The apartment was silent, except for my breathing. I pressed my ear against the shared wall with the neighbor to my left, an older woman named Carol, who I had spoken to maybe 3 times in the 2 years I had lived here. I pounded on the wall with my fist and yelled her name. I yelled that I needed help. I yelled for her to call the police. I heard her voice through the wall, muffled and confused, asking what was wrong. I yelled again, "Call the police." Someone tried to get into my apartment. I ran to the peephole and looked out. He was still standing in the hallway just outside my door, not trying to force his way in, not even touching the door. He was looking down at his phone, scrolling through something. His face was calm. After a moment, he turned and limped toward the stairwell, favoring his right leg. He did not rush. He moved like someone finishing a shift and heading home. The damaged box was still sitting in my doorway where he had left it. I stayed pressed against the door until I heard Carol's voice in the hallway calling my name. Then I heard heavier footsteps and a man's voice identifying himself as police. I moved the desk and opened the door. 2 officers stood in the hallway with Carol beside them in her bathrobe. One of them asked if I was injured. I said no. I tried to explain what happened, but my voice kept breaking. I showed them the box. I described the uniform and the scanner and the photos on his phone. They searched the stairwell and the street outside. They took my statement. One of them called the delivery company and waited on hold for 12 minutes before speaking to a supervisor who said they had no driver scheduled for my address that evening. They said none of their drivers were authorized to enter residences for any reason. The next afternoon, the police called me back. They had found a clipboard in the recycling room on the first floor, tucked behind a stack of flattened cardboard. It had handwritten notes on 7 residents in the building. My name was 3rd on the list. Next to it was my work schedule, the fact that I was divorced as of last November, and the notation that I usually ordered takeout on Wednesday nights around 7. The other names had similar details: one woman's gym schedule, another man's overnight shifts. A couple on the 2nd floor who left for work at 6 in the morning. They never found him. The delivery company had no record of anyone matching his description. The uniform could have been ordered online. The scanner could have been bought second-hand. I moved out 5 weeks later. I still checked the peephole twice before opening the door. I still think about how easily I let him inside, how reasonable his explanation sounded, how long he must have spent watching before he knocked. Story number 3. Familiar voice. I was chopping carrots for dinner when my phone rang. The caller ID said First National Bank. I wiped my hands on a towel and answered. "Ms. Peterson, this is Tom from First National Fraud Department. We've detected some unusual activity on your checking account ending in 7321. Do you have a moment?" It was Tom's voice. I'd worked with him for almost 8 years. Same calm tone, same faint Minnesota accent that rounded his vowels. I set down the knife. "Oh, yes, of course. What's going on?" "We're seeing 3 transactions from this afternoon that we need to verify with you. First, a charge at Target for $67.42 at 2:15. Then Kowalski's Market for $33.18 at 3:05. And a gas station charge at Holiday for $41.50 at 3:40. My chest loosened. Those were all mine. I'd done exactly that loop after school. Target for classroom supplies, Kowalski's for groceries, Holiday to fill up the tank. "Yes, those are all me," I said. "I did all of those today. Good. That's what we hoped. But we're also seeing an attempted wire transfer for $8,000 that was flagged by our system. Did you authorize a transfer this evening?" "No." "Absolutely not." "That's what we thought. We've temporarily blocked it, but I need to verify your identity to make sure we're protecting the right account holder. Can you confirm your mother's maiden name?" I hesitated. It felt routine, but something made me pause. I told myself it was just because of that data breach I'd read about last month. Banks were probably being extra careful now. "Lindstrom," I said. I heard a faint clicking in the background, like someone typing on a keyboard. That made sense. He was probably logging everything. "And the street you grew up on?" "Oak Ridge Lane," more clicking. Then I heard something else. Voices. Quiet, but definitely there. Whispering. I couldn't make out words, but it sounded like at least two people talking over each other in the background. Is someone else there with you? I asked. Just the fraud monitoring team. We're all working on flagged accounts right now. It's been a busy afternoon. Tom's voice was steady. Professional. One more question. What's your account? PIN? That stopped me. I thought you weren't supposed to ask for that. Normally no, but because this is an active fraud intervention, I need to verify you have access to the account. It's policy for wire transfer blocks over $5,000. That sounded wrong, but I wasn't sure. Maybe they'd changed the rules. And it was Tom. I'd sat across the desk from him when I opened my savings account. He'd helped me set up automatic transfers for Emily's college fund. I'd rather not say it over the phone, I said. I understand. That's actually good security practice on your part, Ms. the Sitchin. Peterson. He cleared his throat in that familiar way, a little catch before continuing. Let me verify a different way. Can you confirm the last 4 digits of your social security number? I gave them to him. The clicking continued. The whispers seemed slightly louder now, but maybe I was just paying more attention. Perfect. Now, the wire transfer that was flagged was set to go to an account in Texas. Do you know anyone in Texas who might be expecting a payment from you? No, I don't know anyone in Texas. That confirms it's fraudulent. We're going to need to issue you a new account number and debit card. In the meantime, I'm placing a hard freeze on all transactions. You should see that reflected in your online banking within the hour. I pulled my laptop closer on the kitchen counter and opened my bank's website while he talked. Everything looked normal. My balance was correct. The 3 transactions from today were listed. Ms. Peterson, I also want to make sure your linked accounts are secure. You have a savings account and a college fund account with us, is that correct? The one for McAllister. My hands stopped on the trackpad. I hadn't mentioned Emily's college. I hadn't said anything about where she went to school. How did you know that? I asked. It's listed in your account profile. We can see all linked accounts and their purposes. Maybe that was true. Maybe I'd written that down somewhere when I set it up. But I didn't remember doing that. And why would he need to know that detail right now? I think I should come into the branch, I said. Miss Peterson, I need you to stay on the line. If you hang up now, the fraud prevention system will lock your account and you won't be able to access it until we complete a full investigation. That can take 5 to 7 business days, and in the meantime, whoever tried to make this transfer will have multiple opportunities to try again. His voice had changed, just slightly. The calm was still there, but underneath it was something else. Urgency. Pressure. If you come into the branch, they won't be able to help you. This has to be handled through the fraud department directly. Every minute we wait, your account is vulnerable. The whispers in the background were clearer now. I could almost make out words, numbers maybe, or names. I'm going to hang up and call the bank back, I said. Carol, listen to me. I ended the call. My hands were shaking. He'd called me Miss Peterson the entire time until that last second. Then it was Carol. I grabbed my keys and purse and left the carrots on the cutting board. The bank was 4 blocks away. I could be there in 3 minutes. I drove faster than I should have through the neighborhood. It was 5:40. The bank closed at 6. I pulled into the parking lot at 5:47. Tom was at the counter when I walked in, the real Tom. He looked up and smiled, then saw my face and the smile faded. Carol? What's wrong? Did you just call me about fraud on my account? No. I've been here all afternoon. I haven't called anyone. My stomach dropped. Someone just called me. They said they were you. They knew my account number. They knew my recent transactions. They knew Emily goes to McAllister. Tom's face went pale. He turned to his computer and started typing fast. When did the call end? 2 minutes ago, maybe 3. He clicked through screens, his jaw tight. There was a wire transfer attempted on your account at 5:36. $8,000. It was flagged and blocked automatically, but someone tried to override the block at 5:43. 5:43, I was still on the phone at 5:43. Who would know all that information? I asked. I don't know, but we need to freeze everything right now. He was already typing. I'm locking all your accounts. We'll issue new numbers, new cards, everything. They sounded exactly like you, I said. I've known you for 8 years. It was your voice. Tom stopped typing and looked at me. What do you mean exactly like me? Your voice, your accent, the way you clear your throat. It was you. He picked up his phone and made a call. Steve, it's Tom. I need you to pull the security recording from Carol Peterson's account. There was a fraudulent call at 5:35. He listened. Yes, pull the audio. He put the phone on speaker. A moment later, another voice came through. Playing it now. I heard the phone ringing, then my own voice. Hello? Then Tom's voice. Ms. Peterson, this is Tom from First National Fraud Department. I looked at the real Tom standing in front of me. He was staring at the phone, his face white. The recording continued, my voice giving my mother's maiden name, the street I grew up on, the last 4 digits of my social security number, and Tom's voice, patient and professional, asking each question. The real Tom reached out and stopped the playback. That's not me, he said quietly, but that's my voice. We stood there in the empty bank. Outside, the sun was setting behind the houses across the street. The lights in the parking lot were starting to come on. How is that possible? I asked. Tom didn't answer. He was staring at the computer screen, at the blocked wire transfer, at the timestamp that proved someone had been trying to drain my account while speaking to me in his voice. I don't know, he finally said. He printed out forms for me to fill out. Fraud reports, police reports, new account applications. I signed everything, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I left the bank at 6:20, Tom walked me to my car. He looked over his shoulder twice, like he was checking to see if anyone was watching. Change all your passwords tonight, he said. Everything, email, phone, social media, all of it. I nodded. And Carol? He cleared his throat, that same little catch, then stopped, realizing what he'd done. Be careful who you talk to on the phone. I drove home in the dark. The carrots were still on the cutting board. My phone was face down on the counter where I'd left it. I didn't pick it up. I'm not sure when I will.